Participants, hi everyone. So thanks for joining today's webinar. I am Vijay from HCL Batch Practice and I'm based in Bangalore and I take care of all test tool partnership and alliance activities. So some of you may be aware that we have strategic partnership with Conformiq. Okay, so this partnership was signed almost before 2 years. Okay, and as part of our GTM activities, we have organized this webinar. So basically, it's a to improve the mind share of Conformiq and also help you to identify opportunities for Conformiq. And some of you were part of the earlier webinar which was organized say before a month or so. So this is a follow-up webinar. So post the first webinar, I got a feedback saying that, okay, hey, let's basically showcase to the larger audience as to how Conformiq can be deployed in the larger project, what are the timelines associated with it, if there is a POC which has to be executed using Conformiq, okay, so what is the process to be followed? Again, who are the stakeholders to be involved? So we passed on this feedback to Conformiq team and now they have come up with this second webinar. So we have Clark from Conformiq US team, and we have Arjun from Conformiq India team who will be the presenters. And Supriya, thanks a lot for organizing this webinar. Clark, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Vijay. Appreciate it. So thanks for being on, everybody. This is really an internal presentation to you. This is not intended, as Vijay said, not intended for your customers. That was the previous webinar, but this is really focused on trying to transfer knowledge to you, to feel comfortable, to work with us, to go forward to your customers and prospects, to change the testing methods that they're using now and improve them and really give yourself an advantage in those accounts. So I'm going to go through slides very quickly here. We're going to record these so that you can review them at leisure later, but I want to hit the highlights so you get a better understanding of how we can work together going forward. So we're going to go through real quick on some usability, where we're a good fit, talk about POCs, how do we work together for delivery, what we do for training, and then a little bit of information about existing accounts that we have, tool comparisons, and we'll jump straight into the product demo. And at that point, start asking your questions so that you have a better understanding of anything that's missing. So I give a quick introduction here just so that you have a sense of who we are, but I wanted to focus here that we're a partner with you. And so, as Vijay said, it's been a couple years now since that was initiated. But I also want to say that we're working with your rational product teams. We've been talking to them about integrating the tools together. We've been supporting IBM previously in their rational tooling. And now that you've taken over that effort, we want to work with you to embed and connect those tools so that it's something that could actually be put together and sold as an extension or a part of the rational software when you take that to market also. The key selling points I want to talk about here is fundamentally, let's face it, most everything in testing today is done manually. There's a push to get automated execution, but we want to automate the entire process. So we're seeing a huge efficiency gain here in going from the BA level of initiating the application itself all the way through automated execution. And you just need to think about this in terms of your commercial engagement, because you can't think of it as saying, I'm going to use the same people, the same head count, and I'm going to add Conformiq in there. That's going to be way too expensive. Not that we're that expensive, but the fact is we're just adding two things without realizing that we can actually cut the testing costs dramatically. What we've been seeing lately is that companies like Wipro have been coming in and buying business with 2% margin. I mean, they're going after a lot of big opportunities by dropping their price. Well, you can compete and still maintain your margins by using Conformiq. And it's important to work with us to say, you know, what should the headcount be based on using Conformiq, and how can that be presented to the customer so that you make good money on the business and get the products to market sooner. So the key here is that we want to work with you to really highlight these solutions and improvements that you see here, but also do it in a way that effectively gives you cost advantage and cost flexibility in commercial engagement. What can Conformiq do? This is where it gets kind of interesting. Our software actually automatically thinks of the test cases for you. You're not modeling the tests. You're not thinking of them. The tool is thinking of them. What you're doing is you're creating a graphical flow. Think of it like Gherkin. Think of it like Visio. And from that, the tool is going to understand the logic of the application, and it's going to generate the test cases to give you full coverage and show you that the requirements have been covered, what the traceability is, to optimize the minimum number of test cases, and then it's going to generate fully executable scripts with the validations. So in doing this, we eliminate the manual effort for test design, the manual effort for validation, thinking, and the manual effort for the scripting part of the flow. So you're in essence going straight from a graphical model where you get visual approval from the entire team, so everybody understands we're all on the same page, and go straight into execution. Now you want to look and see that you get what you want, but the idea is that the effort, the time that goes into those steps, the test design and the scripting, that's eliminated. That's basically go to zero, and that's why there's a huge savings here. The key is that we're going to think of the test cases. We're going to think of all the things that you need to go direct to execution. Conformiq is the only tool that does this. And the key is that you want to propose to your customers that you automate everything possible. You're moving them from what was manual to digital, to shift left and deliver better quality, known quality, and do it faster. These are the items that today either are being done manually or should be done manually, but maybe there's not enough time to do it, especially if you're trying to move to an agile process. There's just not enough time to do all this. You can design tests, but you're just kind of hacking them later. And what's needed for data, well, Conformiq Creator is going to automatically determine the data that you need. Now you can include production data later for your execution, but in thinking of the test cases, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You don't have to worry about the data. The tool is going to think of the test cases. The tool is going to think of the data. The tool is going to write your scripts, results, documentation, everything. And then you know exactly what covers what. So you actually optimized your regression suite too, because now you know what every test covers, and only the then current test cases are uploaded into the ALM tool of choice to use for generating your regression suites. So the idea is that you can have all this capability, you can do it automatically and do it continuously for agile speeds. There's questions that always come up. What kind of testing can we do? What kind of, in essence, technologies can be used? And here the idea is that Conformiq is able to test all of these. We're testing in an application layer that is a little more abstract than you may be used to in terms of real detailed test generation. We're dealing at an abstract level of the flow of the application with the user interfaces and the data that you use for that. The detailed buttons and all the things that you would normally think of to put into your execution environment are going to be coupled when we generate the scripts for automation. So it's a bit of a two-step process, but it's all tightly integrated so that you can combine these different areas and these different technologies, so you could actually test user interface with APIs. for example. Where are the best fits? All these areas are good. And I point them out just because there's a few differences here and there. A greenfield is, I mean, awesome, great, but how often do you really get a full greenfield project? So most of it's a brownfield. It's an extension to an existing application. And the only reason I put a B+ on waterfall is that you may have a lot of model conversion or existing manual tests to convert into models. And so that effort, even with reverse engineering, might be a little bit of more effort than needed, because your reverse engineering isn't going to necessarily be a perfect model because you don't know all the details that are needed. Maybe there's some information that's left off the model, the manual test case itself, so therefore you have to add it into the model. But Agile, DevOps, it's really just reverse engineering, taking that those models that have now been optimized and in some cases dramatically reduced in the number of manual test cases, sometimes by 30%, and then using that as a forward testing process. Using other tools that you might see in your execution environment. The only reason I put Waterfall and Tosca is that as a B is that they may just not care about any quick design, because Conformiq can front end all these tools with the exception of Worksoft. And Worksoft is a bit of an outlier case because Worksoft has no open API. It's a closed system, and so there's no good way within Worksoft to optimize the test cases, but we can do that. And then we can generate the format that you can then put into Worksoft, but it's not a direct integration like we have with Tosca or Selenium or UFT. And I say UFT, LeanFT, any of the microfocus tools. So all these are good fits, and all these are opportunities that we should explore. Others that you might talk about would be Robot. Yep, we have a great integration with Robot. And if you're talking about other toolings for things like ALM products, we'll talk about that in a minute and show you our integration with the existing products. Talk about licenses. People want to know about licenses. This is something you can look at later, but we offer a variety of different licenses. We have Creator and we have Transformer. Transformer is a platform for automating execution with UFT or built-in Selenium. We offer a variety of options named to the computer, so it's locked to the computer, or it's a local area shared client server, or even global client server. And so we offer those on an annual and perpetual basis. The transition point is about 3 years. So if you're engaged in a 3-year project, it's probably better to get a perpetual license as opposed to annual, because annual goes away at the end of each term. With the perpetual, you have an asset. It's a CapEx as opposed to an OpEx expense. If you're dealing with a customer that only wants to work with OpEx, then let's stay with annual. The only issue on budgeting here is perpetual is that the licenses are paid upfront, and with annual, they're paid for every term. Within the POC process, it's all identified, it's locked and loaded. We can support you on this. There's things that we need to do to make sure that these are good POCs, that we understand the scope and it's a good fit, and we understand the KPIs, because it's not a case of just throwing stuff against the wall and saying, hey, do you want to look at technology? Because we got some cool technology. The real issue is to think about it on a sales process and say, what do you need to see, Mr. Customer, Mr. Prospect? Let's understand where your problems are. Let's understand what issues you're trying to solve. And then let's show you how we can solve those. Because if we solve those, we want to go and work with you using this process. So the idea is that we can deliver the POCs, we can work with you on these POCs, we can make sure that they go well. As long as we've done the homework in advance, we find that these are exceptionally good steps to move straight to engaging in real projects. questions to ask. There's things that, you say, okay, well, what do I say to these guys? What do I want to ask? I'm not quite sure. These are things to understand what they're kind of thrashing with now, because maybe they'll say, hey, things are okay. Maybe they'll say a little bit of, I've got this kind of problem or that kind of problem, but it doesn't really translate to something where you say, wow, there's a big opportunity here. I think what we really want to say is that look at these later and think of these and see if these are the things that they have issues with. Do they need improvement in any of these areas? And this usually then leads into a discussion where they start to explain, well, we really have this problem, or this is an issue, or we can't get these guys to work with those guys. So if you have questions on these, just reach out to us, and we'll explain more about it and help you ask these questions or understand why these would be useful questions to ask the client. In terms of thinking about the tooling as we move forward here, the point is that there needs to be some way to get everybody on the same page. Today, you might have text documentation for requirements or user stories, or maybe somebody is using a BDD approach and they're writing Gherkin. Well, the issue is that there's no known coverage. There's no known matched requirements. Do you have all the flows? Do you really understand what is being done here in terms of the way the application works? And typically the answer is no. We think we do, but then we find out we missed something. Maybe there's a negative path that we didn't think of. So the point here is put it on digital paper. Draw it out. Understand it. Everybody looks at it. It's very simple. There's not a lot of information here, but you understand the flow. And if you have it in Gherkin, you can import it and generate this model. If you want to use Gherkin in a Cucumber process, well, you can do this and we'll generate Gherkin. The point is, this is a way of understanding at a very high level, a BA level, if you will, what the application is supposed to look like. And you can continue to grow this as you go forward because, again, you're evolving. We're not dealing with waterfall here, we're dealing with agile. So the idea is that it's always growing. And then as you get information and people say, well, this is the way I want the login screen to look like. I want this display screen and I want this fill form that I've put the name in and I'm going to click a button. So you actually put in user actions. I mean, if we're testing through the GUI, obviously if we're testing other types of technology operation, then these would be a little different. But the idea here is that as you get information, as you try it, and you may say, I want to change it. But the point is that you can very quickly put this information in, and the more information you put in, you can generate the scripts for automated execution. There's ways to help you understand that the modeling is done properly, this quick fix. So there's a lot of ways that Conformiq makes this modeling easier. The one thing you need to do is you need to think of the flow of the application, the logic. So it's a bit of a change, but not as much as you think. It's actually a very similar to the way that things are working now, but you're just putting it on using the computer. So the idea would be that you'd start at this BA level, if you will, the requirements user story level. You'd add fidelity, and this can be an iterative process, obviously. And as you go, you generate your tests. This is to understand, do I have the test coverage I want? And if you decide you do, then you press another button and you're generating reports and the executable scripts with validations for automated execution in a variety of different platforms. What do you want to use? So the key is to be able to deliver this repeatable process and do it consistently. And it's not a case where every BA or every test designer is going to come up with a something a little different. This generates a consistency that makes the entire process easier and faster and more understandable for you as well as for your client. These are the kinds of things that you want to see. And this is more information that you're going to get if you're doing it manually. There's a test coverage up at the top that goes straight against the requirements that you sucked in from your requirements tool. It's going to show every test step with all the data. And this is all linked. It's an Eclipse environment, so all these windows are linked together. So if you've clicked on a test case in the lower left, you see all this information. You see the coverage through the entire application, which helps you understand what's covering what. And by the way, if it's not covered, it'll show you in red that it's missed. So you understand that, oh my goodness, maybe I didn't do something correctly, or I have some incorrect logic, or I have done something where I can't get the coverage I want and I need to go back and look at it. And when there's a change to the application, you change the model to match that change and regenerate the test cases. It's a button click. And what it comes back is with this impact analysis that says, when I've made a change, certain test cases are still valid. Certain test cases are no longer valid, and they're highlighted, as you see here, in red with the red button, and other ones are new. And when they're new, they're bolded so that you can see, and timestamped so you can see what the new test cases are. In this case, you can say, well, maybe I just want to auto-execute the new test cases. But you have a full understanding at every design change or every addition to the design. Every time you've regenerated, you made a change to the model to match that and regenerated the test cases, you have all that information. And again, remember, the test case generation is very fast, minutes. So typically, you used to spend a lot of time saying, okay, this is my process flow. I've got the test design and the scripting. I have to set aside, man weeks for this. No, we're talking about button clicks now. How do I want to optimize? I put this in just so that you have a little bit of information. There's a variety of ways that these can be done to optimize. Typically, people say, I just want to make sure I cover all my requirements in the minimum number of test cases. But you could be doing risk-based, you could be doing combinatorial data. It's up to you on how you want to cover the tests to make sure that you're comfortable. And it's not that you have to do it once. You might just run it requirements and make sure you have all your requirements covered. You may come back and say, well, now I want to look at combinatorial data or do something else. So you could just iterate through this. It's not necessarily a one step and then you're done. It's up to you on how you want to make sure that you get the tests covered that you need. And then for reverse engineering, pulling in existing assets, you might say, how do I do this? And how do I optimize these things? It's really an automatic conversion. And it's going to eliminate the duplications and the subtests so that you get a model generated from this directly. So the flow would be something like this, where you have assets, you bring it in, and automatically it generates the model using some AI technology. So you see at the bottom, over 30% of the, this is an existing customer, the manual tests were so many duplicates or subtests. And this was, if nothing else, this just cleaned up the mess that they had from, multiple iterations of manual test design. To give you a better understanding, as Vijay said, you'd have more technical knowledge. I don't want to just say, hey, this is magic. It's not. The idea is that you import those tests and it's normalized, and then it's optimized automatically to look for duplication. And from that, you get the test steps, and then it understands the logical flow of those tests so that you can actually then merge those together and generate the flows that you can then see in the model to go forward with. And then from here, you can add more information or extend to add new capability for the extended design. And what do we see for results? Well, here are some real examples from customers. I'll show different types of vertical company markets so that you get a sense that it's not limited to any particular application, because we don't, with our software, provide application-specific components. We do technology-specific components for user interface, for mobile devices, those kinds of things, but those are universally available for any different vertical. So here you see a huge difference, and what you see is, look at the test design effort. Boom, down to nothing. The rework, the traceability. I mean, the one thing they don't show in here is documentation, because if they were documenting, it's 0 in Conformiq. So the idea is that the entire process flow was greatly reduced. Here's the bank, and actually this was done by another partner. They proposed 25 more testers for this project as it evolved. And they started with 10 creator licenses. And within the first quarter, they realized that they didn't need to add those 25. And so they were able to have that savings and decide how to best to pass that on to their client, whether they split it or whatever. But the point is, here you have a commercial opportunity to go in and not get hammered by your client that you got to reduce, 5 to 7% every year. Here you can take the high road, and you can come in and you can say, hey, yeah, I can decrease by 15% a year, and be able to do it very quickly, or come in and say, hey, we'll share the savings. But the point is, you can bring a change in process and a leadership in technology and relationship to your clients. And another example in the insurance field, and this actually is something that if you are in the US and you go into major pharmacies, I've seen signs out front that advertise this particular insurance application. You see that they dramatically reduced the time it took, so that they got great results. We wanted to talk ROI. Here's another example. What you're seeing is some great results. The one thing you can't do is say that we're going to do manual and we're going to do Conformiq at the same time, because you're duplicating effort. You have to make that transition, but we'll help you do that. The idea is that once you've made that transition, you're going to see, again, major efficiency gains. And your ROI, I mean, you should be seeing, depending on what type of license mechanism you used, but you should see an ROI on an annual basis. You should see it within 6 months. You should be able to be up and running very soon, certainly within a month, if not sooner. Customers that we have now, actually there's probably a few more that we could add here, but the point being that these are companies that you are either in now or want to go after, and these are usually brought to us by partners, so we'd certainly like to work with you to add more to this customer list. So we really want to target going after opportunities that you're looking at now to bring the same kind of efficiency gain to those customers as we brought to these. Integration. It's always a question. I got a customer and he's got lots of stuff already. He's got lots of different tools. I'm trying to make everything work. I've got to have experts in all these different technologies. There's no consistent flow. Well, here what we're talking about is the ability to integrate into all these different environments, including test. Data. I mean, people talk about how do you get the actual data. Well, you can pull that in, and with Excel from different TDM tools. You can let the tool think of the data and then substitute it later, because you have variables that you put in, placeholders into the application for or the scripts for automated execution later. But you can bring in information from a lot of different sources. So any particular project you engage with, you can support them. And if it's not on this list now, let's add it. The idea is that we want to be able to support your environment, the HCL environment. We want to be able to support your customer's environment, because usually these platforms are a little unique. They have some proprietary capability to them. Maybe it's keywords, but that's what we'll map to. So this is not a generic transfer of a file. This is a deep integration because we need to go from the requirements or the existing assets, and we need to take it directly to automated execution. So we have to be able to map exactly to the framework and the language that and the syntax that's being used for the actual execution environment. How do we support you in going forward here? There's a variety of ways that we do that, and most of this is through training programs. So we have, an online Greenbelt course. It's an introduction course, but it's available to everyone within HCL because you're a partner. So there's no charge here. We have best practices that are documents that we can review with you, but the idea here is to take a look at these and understand how best to start the deployment. But we also provide, if needed, on-site training. We have offices in both Bangalore and Hyderabad if those map to locations where you have your offshore sites. But the point is that even if it's other places and if we have to travel, then it's minimal cost to make sure that goes well. Or we could do it with a web-based support. So these kinds of things are available. We want to make sure that you start right and you continue right. So the key is to get started on some projects and to try and identify a specialist, a COE expert, if you will, that can be the go-to specialist for every project. And we want to work together with you to make sure that that person is selected and brought up to speed to be able to be that first line. And so, the idea here is that we want to make sure that you get started quickly and you get started and do best practices. So we want to make sure that we work with you. We have obviously corporate NDA. If we need to sign an NDA for every project, fine. The point is we want to be able to support you to be able to very quickly deliver the efficiency gains that we just talked about. And really all that's needed here is the ability to understand the logic of the application to be tested. It's pretty straightforward. I want to talk about why are we different, because sometimes people say, well, how do you compare with tool X? This is kind of the flow that we see. This has the components that are kind of expected. Usually there's applications or manual steps for each of these different major portions of the testing process. But what we really see in reality today, because it's manual, is that you have a requirements tool and you have a test execution tool, but everything in between is manual. And that's why it's really not a CI/CD process, and it really fails today in an agile world, or it doesn't work as effectively as expected. And so this is why things are delayed and they cost more than that customers would like to see. Now, for some tooling that's out there, and I'm not going to pick on any tools because there's no bad tools. All these tools do provide value. The question is how much value. So if you're looking at a CA tool, it does not generate the scripts. It talks about you manually put in code snippets and think of the validations. Well, that leaves the test, creation part out for manual. If you're talking Micro Focus tools, they don't really do the test design or the test creation. You still have to think of those tests and write VB scripts or Excel to be able to automate. So there's a big manual gap there. Tosca talks about MBT. It's really a Excel framework, Excel spreadsheet, but you have to think of as the tester or as the test designer what you put in there. So again, you're doing the test design work for that process. Conformiq is the only tool that actually bridges that entire gap. And that's why we're different, and that's why we have the value add, and that's why HCL is partnering with us to deliver the maximum efficiency gain. And how does this work? The idea here is that people can see the difference once you look into it. On the surface, let's face it, demos are designed to look great. But in the case of ARD, which is what we see a lot because CA is seeding their tool into a lot of major companies, they're not seeing the efficiency gains and they don't know any better. But we come in and by working with you, we can actually highlight that they're leaving a lot of money on the table, because what we do is automatic, what they do has mostly manual, and the difference is huge. So the point is that we're going to deliver more automation than any other testing tool. That means you really can deliver better, faster, cheaper. So, I mean, one of the questions to ask the client is, why would you want to pay more? Because we, HCL, can deliver better, faster, cheaper. So what's our partnership look like? You got a lot of access to licenses and TCOE specialists that we can train. You can purchase licenses for resale. You can purchase licenses for use and embedding it into your rates. You can also have the customer purchase and you can use it. So there's a lot of flexibility here. We want to work the way you want to work, the way your customer wants to work. So we can work together jointly on selling, work together jointly on POC delivery, looking at opportunities that are out there, maintaining the integrations with your tooling as that changes, and to actually target some accounts so that we can actually work together and go after them. And we're supporting you. We're not out there selling product. We're supporting you in delivering a complete solution. So help us understand how we can work with you, because this is a game changer, and we're seeing a tremendous upswell in interest in not just our tooling, but in changing the testing process. So reach out to me. I'm responsible for Americas. If you are coming from a different geo in terms of opportunities, certainly can connect you with our Europe and Asia and India geohead, so that we can work together tightly with your locations. So thanks for that, and I really appreciate HCL partnership. We're looking forward to making this real successful. So we're going to shift over to a demo. I'm going to turn this over to Arjun right now, and we're going to go through for the another 25 minutes or so with a real quick demo. So thank you. Arjun, you want to take it away? Arjun?
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, sure. Please let me know when you can see the screen. Yeah.
There we go. You're live.
Sure, Clark. Hello everyone, good morning and good evening. This is Arjun here from Conformiq. So as Clark was explaining till now, like the different features of the Conformiq, I'll quickly highlight a couple of USPs. So basically this is a solution where you will be able to generate the test cases automatically. So now what happens is, like, especially when it comes to the test design process, we always depends on the functional requirements, and when the requirements are crisp and clear, we'll go ahead and write either the test scenarios or the test cases in the Excel spreadsheets, and then based on the business rules we add the data components, and of course we'll continue with the review process and then for the execution. Now what is the advantage over bringing in all those things into a model format is, like, instead of writing everything in a detailed documentation format, I can go ahead and construct my functional flow in the form of a Visio diagram. So it's very easy to create a flowchart or a Visio diagram, and from there the tool will help you to derive the test scenarios or the test cases depending on the level of the details that we keep adding to it to the model here. Now whenever I talk about a model, this model can be looked at two different views. One view, we call it as a business requirement modeling. So especially this can be applicable for a project when this is getting in an agile environment. So in the agile environment we keep getting these functional requirements on a sprint wise. So for sprint wise, in sprint 1, I'll get only first few requirements, and that too, the requirements might not be at the lowest level saying like, okay, this is the mock-up screen, this is the wireframe of the application, and these are the types of the objects in the how it looks like in the application. So in that kind of an environment, I can create these kind of abstract models. So in a more understanding format, I'll call these things as a visual gherkin models. So like just like a flow chart, okay, I can quickly go ahead and define my functional flow here. For example, you can see there is a sample model. So it's like a landing page, that means the starting page, and from there I have 3 different functionalities. One is driving towards the new user creation, another one is login, and another one is forgot login. And for the login itself, I have the facility to add the data here. For example, so login is having 2 types of parameters, one is username and another one is password, and I have the ability to add the data components also, and based on this I will be able to derive which is a negative scenario and which is a positive path also here. Having said that, once this won't take much time to create these kind of a functional flows here. For example, after this account overview, I do have my next step would be like from this account overview, I will be able to continue towards this new account creation. So it could be like a savings account or some other thing. So I can quickly connect these things and I'll just rearrange. Now, as part of my next sprint, I got one more functionality and I have quickly updated this particular flow. So not only this one, from this particular model, I'll be able to quickly generate the high-level test scenarios itself. So what do I need to do? I need to go ahead and say, okay, go to this Conformiq test design and say, generate the test cases. So what this will do is, it will start going through this entire model that I have created, validate the data conditions that I have put in place. From that, it will generate the high-level test scenarios for me. Now, when I call this as a test scenarios, I don't need to worry about, okay, how this looks like in Excel. Before I publish it to Excel or any other format, okay, I can quickly review these models here itself or review the flows itself. Now, when you look at these things, okay, you can see the test cases in different color codings here. So these are all the flows that were showing in a lightweight black color manner, and you can see one another flow in a highlighted manner here. So this do mean that now I have added one small flow, and this do mean saying like, okay, this is the latest test case that is generated, and the rest of the test scenarios I can understand like, okay, because of the functional changes I have done in the model, these scenarios does not get impacted. So that means whenever I change something in the model, the tool will give me an impact analysis saying like, what are all the new test cases that are generated, what are all the obsolete test cases that got deleted, and what are all the unimpacted areas, so that for this sprint alone, I will be able to identify what is the test scenario that I need to concentrate or I need to test, because I will be able to see, okay, this is the latest test case that got generated. And in the same way, I will be able to see like what are all the impacted areas and what are all the unimpacted areas, so that I can focus only on those particular scenarios or the test cases and continue with the test execution. Now, see, but these are only at the scenarios. But the question is, how will I be able to derive to the test cases from the same model? After I getting these wireframes of the applications, I can quickly create these kind of wireframes or replicate these wireframes in these diagrams. And once I have created or imported these kind of wireframes here, the tool will give me what are all the actions that can be performed on these wireframes. So what I mean to say is, now if the same kind of a wireframe is given to a manual tester, what he will do? Based on these things, he will go ahead and write the test step saying like, okay, enter the username, enter the password, click on the login button. The same way, the tool has the capability to derive all the actions that can be performed on these wireframes, and those will be listed down under these actions here. And I can go ahead and create a functional flow of the application at the test step level. Now if you can see here, from the same test steps, I have created one more functional flow where I am completely talking about what is the data at the username, what is the data of password, and what if the username and password are successful here. So this way I will be able to create one more functional flow at the test step level here. I mean, I'm not disturbing the abstract things. Without disturbing that, I've created one more functional flow so that I will be able to generate the minute test steps also from the same model here. Now I simply switched between these flows, using which I'll be able to generate now the test cases along with the test steps and the test data here itself. So quickly I can go ahead and generate these test cases, and in the same way, instead of reviewing the test scenarios, I can review the test cases, test steps along with the data. Now let's see how it looks like. Now you can see. So this is the login activity. Now I can see this is a positive flow, and I'll be able to generate multiple flows here, and this is how it is going to generate the negative scenarios also for me, negative test cases. And you have one more view here saying, okay, what is the data that is being responsible to generate the positive scenario. So you can see I can select this particular steps, and now you can see username is valid and password equal to QWERTY. So this data combination will help me to generate the positive scenario. So instead of reviewing the test cases and the test steps in Excel, I can do the quick review in more of a visual manner, both at the business analyst level as well as at the test analyst level also. Having said that, I can export or I can convert this entire model into a user readable format or a tool readable format. What does that mean? Now, I mean, till now I have seen only the output in the model or in the tool to review, but to use this output by the execution team, I can add multiple plugins here. So one such plugin is Excel, one such plugin is HCL Scripter, and one such plugin is QCALM. So that means the tool has the capability to convert this model into multiple types of outputs. The output could be Excel, the output could be directly exporting these test cases to QCALM or any other test management tools, or the output could be incompatible with the zero touch automation framework that is already there with HCL. Now what I will quickly do is, I mean, because I just need to configure all the QCALM properties, I will not do it right now, but rest of the three formats I can quickly say export these test cases. So till now, whatever the test cases I have seen in a visual manner will be exported to a user readable format or a framework readable format or a tool readable format. Now you can see, yes, the export is done. Now you can see this is how the test cases will look like in a user readable format. That means in a simple Excel format here. Now if you expand a test case, input and output, input, output, input, output. So this is the default format that has been generated from the tool, but this format can be customizable based on the project format that is being used from the HCL side. And now, okay, I will show you one more format where it can be consumed by the HCL's zero touch automation framework itself. Now, if you see the output here, it is publishing the output in two different formats, two different files. One is the component DDXL. So that means it is giving the list of the components from the entire model, okay, along with the test cases and the components here. Now, if you look at the test case 1, okay, this is one action. This is the target. What is the value and what is the type? Is it a GUI action or a custom action here? So now with this kind of an output can be consumed by the HCL automation framework, and that can be taken forward directly towards the execution itself. So there is another file published here, component test data sheet, wherein this will give me what are all the components that are there in the tool and what is the data that has been used also here. So these two sheets will be an input for the framework, and the framework will be able to convert all these things to an executable format, and it can be taken towards the execution. So this is how I will be able to handle the projects which are there in the greenfield environment. That means if a project is running from scratch or starting from scratch, I can either create these high-level scenarios, or I can create these kind of test flows from scratch and take it towards the progression automation itself directly. Now, however, we have given these scripters to suitable with a HCL framework or a QC ALM framework. We are working with the rational products so that the same model can be converted into rational tool compatible format also. Okay, there is a question. Okay, do you have any random test data generation features like Tosca? Okay, this question can be interpreted in two different things actually, because the test data Tosca is basically an executable test automation tool. Okay, with Tosca we have two different kinds of integrations now. One integration is like I can directly export these models to Tosca environment directly using this Tosca scripter. This is one way. The second way is like I can record these entire application screens in Tosca environment, and I can import those modules so that these structure diagrams will be automatically created, then create the functional flows and export it back to Tosca for the execution. These are the two different ways I can integrate with Tosca right now. And for integrating with Tosca, we are using this REST API as a integration, because we can set the REST API and we can write and read from Tosca and to Tosca. Okay, so this is how I will be able to deal with the greenfield projects. Now, when it comes to the usage of the existing assets, because especially when it comes to the brownfield kind of an environment, the user may come back to me, say like, okay, I already have 2000 test cases with me. So all the test cases are there in Excel, or they're already lying in QC test plan. So how do you want me to go ahead and create a model like this? So if that is the case, the approach would be completely different. So we are using another approach called reverse engineering. So what are we doing is like we are taking this existing test assets, be it in the QC format or be it in the Excel format. I can import those test cases and create this functional model in more of an automated manner. How would I do that? Now, I can quickly go ahead and create a project here. Just give me a second. Now, this will help me to import the existing Excel test suites. So when it comes to usage of the existing assets, right? So these assets can be reverse engineering, or these assets can be provided from the BS itself. So when it comes to the BS side, they may give the feature files. That means the feature files which are written in a Gherkin format or any other format, I can import them and I can create my model so that I don't need to create my model from scratch, or I can import the existing test cases, or I can import these QTP assets like TSR files or anything else, and I can import the visuals, I can import the headless things like WSDL files or WADL files and all these things. So for time being, quickly I'll show you this Excel manual test cases. So quickly I'll browse through that Excel test case, and okay, what I'll do is I'll just format it to the column saying like, okay, this is the column where I have all the step descriptions, this is the column where I have expected results, and this is where I have all my test names and everything. And if I have my data using a delimiter called double quotes, or you can configure these delimiters and say finish. The moment you click on this finish button, the first step would be, okay, the entire Excel sheet can be converted into a format, Excel format, XML format, and during the refactoring, we will eliminate all the redundant test cases also. So that is where you can see a step called reduction in the test cases is 13%. Say okay. Now what will happen here is like it will create a functional flow diagram for me, and to import these Excel sheets, right, we are following a methodology called artificial intelligence, natural language or natural text processing here. And now you can see the flow here. So the first step is like enter the URL, and this is the flow where it is all having all the login related flows, and this is where you have the registration related flows, and this is where you have all the admin related flows. And further it can be classified with the multiple options. So again in the registration flow you can see some more conditions have been handled, saying like first name is required, invalid password, and a positive scenario. This is how I'll be able to quickly import the test cases and generate these updated or final set of test cases from the flow here. Now as an output I will have only the unique test cases after refactoring all the redundant test cases and duplicate test steps also. Now this will become my baseline model from the regression test suite, and whatever the changes that I wanted to do as part of my change request or maintenance process, I can go ahead and do it in the base model, and I'll be able to generate the impacted test cases, unimpacted test cases, and all those things. Okay, seems I have a couple of questions. Okay. Okay, this is how I'll be able to handle the existing test scenarios, and the same way I can handle I can import all the Gherkin feature files so that I can do the jumpstart modeling activity like this, or I will be able to import the U of T assets also without any issues, and I can handle not only the UI scenarios, I'll be able to import these RAML definitions or JSON XMLs or SOAP UI XML, so that I'll be able to model the headless testing scenarios also. Okay, so the question is, does the Conformiq reads the test data only in the XML format? Yes, as of now we'll be able to read the data only from the Excel sheets. So even if you are using any of the test tools like TDM or GenRocket kind of a thing, you need to export the data to Excel, and that can be integrated directly with Conformiq for the test case generation. How can you handle multi-user edit of the models? Yes, the tool can be integrated with JIT. Okay, so if you can see here, there is an option where you can import the project directly from the JIT itself. Okay, so if the JIT is completely configured, the base model can be exported and integrated with the JIT, and the different users who have access to the JIT environment, they can access the model directly from the JIT, and that can be imported to a local repository. You can add, modify, and do whatever the things that you want, and when you checked in, it will be checked into the local repository, and after the admin reviews all the changes, and he can do a merging kind of a things, and he can directly push it to the head version itself. And the same way, I mean, if the user is using a JIT kind of a tool, he can integrate directly from the tool itself, or if you are willing to work with any other tools like SVN, at a file level, you can still do that in the same way. Okay, every time when you edit, how will you handle the test cases in terms of existing, new, and removal? Yes, when you regenerate the test cases, right, you will be able to see all the deleted test cases, new generated test cases, and unimpacted test cases in this review tab with different color codings here. Okay, probably let me go to the other project. Okay, yeah, now you can see. Okay, this is an unimpacted test case. This is a latest or newly generated test case, and these test cases are the obsolete test cases because of the changes that you have done in the model. This way you will be able to identify what are all the deleted test cases, what are all the new test cases, what are all the expanded test cases, and what are the unimpacted test cases here. Okay, so any other questions? Right. So, okay, probably I may not be able to show that QCALM due to the time constraint. But what happens is, like, when we are exporting it to QCALM, in the test plan folder, we will create two more folders. One folder is called the current test, and the second folder is called ATIC. So what happens when you export the test cases for the very first time, all the test cases will be published into the current test folder. And whenever you do some changes in the model, and when you re-export the test cases to QCALM, all the obsolete test cases will be moved to the other folder called ATIC test cases, and the updated set of test cases will be automatically available into this current test folder. So I am not deleting the test cases in QCALM, rather I am moving to the other folder called ATIC, so that I can keep track of what are all the obsolete test cases and all those things. This way I can manage all my test cases in QCALM without any issues.
And what I would recommend is that if you have a particular opportunity that you want to discuss, it usually has its own set of tooling. It might be UFT, ALM, JIRA, you name it. Let's talk about that. Reach out to us and we can show you a demo for the environment that you're looking at with that customer, and we can go through more specifics about the details for that customer and explain it so that you have comfort to both support it with internal delivery teams as well as your customer facing teams to take that forward. I think today what we've tried to do is show you a very high level overview of the tool and the benefits that we can bring by working together. But I think the next step would be to either reach out to Vijay so he can coordinate, or reach out to us directly so that we can arrange a very specific discussion on your particular opportunity, so we could take that forward if it looks good to you. So I want to thank you all. I think we're running a bit over right now, but I do appreciate your interest and your questions, and the other questions that we haven't gotten to or that are also things that pop into your mind later. Again, reach out to Vijay or reach out to us so that we can get those answered. We want to make sure that best we can provide you with as much understanding so that you're comfortable in looking to take that next step to start to peel the onion and go layer and layer to understand the fit and the benefits. So I want to thank you for the time you've put in, and Vijay, I'll turn it over to you to wrap up.
Thanks, Clark. Thanks, Arjun. So I missed a few points as part of introduction. So as part of our GTM, so it's just not the webinars which we are organizing on a periodic basis. Conformiq as a unit, right, they're working very closely with our automation COE practice, and Conformiq is part of our zero-touch testing solution developed by automation COE. And as Arjun rightly pointed out, so they are also in touch with our products and platform team, right? So Clark basically showcased this slide on various tool integrations Conformiq has currently. So they are also working with our products and platform development team in order to extend their product to cover all these rational and HCL test tools. So once that is up, then the momentum would pick up from PNP side. But here the request is, I know that it was difficult for all members to join this webinar, so Supriya would be sharing this detailed slide pack as well as this recorded webinar with the larger forum. So whenever you encounter an opportunity, right, so please reach out to all these Conformiq members, and you can reach out to me as well. So I presume that you got the crux that Conformiq as a tool will help us to basically automate the test case creation process, wherein bulk of the manual effort is going on. And then as part of the end-to-end test automation, again, Conformiq is one of the key component whether as part of zero touch testing or as a standalone product. So if you encounter any opportunity, please feel free to reach out to us. And once again, thanks to all the attendees as well as the panelists for joining this webinar. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.